This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. This is about something quieter, more dangerous than outrage, more durable than chaos. Because while your attention is pulled towards spectacle, something structural is slipping out of alignment. Slowly, legally, almost politely. Power is no longer trying to persuade you. It's testing whether it still has to. You can feel it in the background noise of daily life. The pressure, the fatigue, the sense that rules apply unevenly now, and that no one is quite steering. This isn't collapse. Collapse is loud. This is drift. And drift is how systems fail without alarms. If you've had the feeling lately that reality itself is being stretched, stay with me. This matters more than it looks, because what appears theatrical on the surface is masking a deeper mechanical shift underneath. And once you see that mechanism, you can't unsee where it leads. What actually controls a system like this is not personality, not temper, not even ideology. It's leverage. The quiet transfer of leverage away from the public and into places you are not meant to look. Enforcement without transparency, money without clear routing, decisions without institutional friction. When leverage concentrates, behavior changes. Rules stop being shared constraints and become tools, applied selectively, withdrawn strategically. You're told this is about order or strength or efficiency. But systems built on leverage don't stabilize. They accelerate. Because once power learns it can act without consequence, it doesn't return to restraint on its own. It tests boundaries. Then it tests you. This is why the most important changes rarely announce themselves. They hide behind noise, behind theater, behind distractions loud enough to keep you arguing about the wrong thing. And while attention is elsewhere, the system quietly rewires who absorbs the risk. That's where this starts to matter personally. Because the next shift isn't abstract. It's operational. There was a time when escalation required justification, a memo, a vote, a delay long enough for someone to say no. That time is gone. What replaced it wasn't a coup, it was normalization. Before, force was the last option. Now, it's the first reflex. Before, economic pain triggered intervention. Now, it's background noise. The shift didn't arrive with a speech. It arrived through repetition, through small exceptions that stopped feeling temporary. Each one defensible on its own, each one forgettable by design, until the baseline moved. You're not meant to notice the moment when enforcement becomes routine and accountability becomes optional. Because slow change doesn't feel like danger. It feels like adaptation. That's the trap. Systems don't announce when they cross a threshold. They wait until reversal feels unrealistic. And once that happens, even obvious shocks stop registering as warnings. They're processed as anomalies, or overreactions, or noise. But what looks like stability right now is something else entirely. It's a system learning it can keep going without asking permission. And the first visible consequences are already appearing. Here is where the abstraction breaks. In one American city, people poured into the streets. Not armed, not organized for violence, just present. The response came anyway. Gas, flashbangs, chemical irritants whose names matter less than their effect. Eyes burning, breath collapsing, confusion doing the work of fear. This wasn't chaos. It was procedure. At the same time, somewhere else, power was on display as pageantry. Excess, insulation, a world carefully sealed off from consequence. Those two images don't contradict each other. They explain each other. Because when a system stops resolving pressure, it redirects it. Downward, outward, away from itself. This is not about one deployment or one city. Those are symptoms. The shock is that the machinery functioned exactly as designed. Fast, forceful, unquestioned. If you're still with me, stay here. Because this moment tells us something uncomfortable about what the system is practicing for. And what it's rehearsing isn't stability, it's readiness. Here's the mechanism most people never see. When systems absorb stress honestly, they reform. When they don't, they reroute damage. Economic strain doesn't disappear. It's displaced. Enforcement intensifies not because disorder increases, but because tolerance decreases. It's cheaper to apply pressure than to fix structure. Who benefits is quiet. Who pays is obvious. Capital gains insulation. Financial pathways that grow more opaque as scrutiny fades. Legal gray zones expanding just enough to keep everything technically defensible. Meanwhile, the costs stack where visibility is lowest. Workers, renters, communities already stretched thin. This isn't incompetence. It's efficiency. just not for you. Systems like this don't collapse under protest. They collapse when the damage they've deferred returns faster than they can redirect it. That's when improvisation replaces policy. And improvisation at scale looks like chaos, even when it's intentional. We're approaching that handoff now because the next phase isn't about hiding the mechanism anymore. It's about testing how much it can withstand. The pace changes here. Things start happening faster than explanations can keep up. Orders arrive before questions, movement before debate, signals before strategy. All at once, pressure points light up, domestically, externally. Allies hesitate, markets flinch, institutions pause, just long enough to be bypassed. None of this looks coordinated. That's why it works. Speed creates confusion. Confusion creates compliance. You're told each move is isolated, temporary, necessary. But systems don't accelerate accidentally. Acceleration is what happens when restraint is removed. At this stage, even decision makers stop fully controlling outcomes. Momentum takes over, and momentum doesn't care about intent. This is where small miscalculations compound, where gestures harden into commitments, where backing down becomes more dangerous than pushing forward. If this feels unstable, it's because it is. And the next signal won't arrive with warning. It will arrive already in motion. This is the point where it reaches you, not as a headline, as a bill you can't quite cover, a notice that doesn't explain itself, a rule that changed without asking. You feel it as compression, less margin, less patience, more risk pushed into your day-to-day life. You didn't vote for this version of instability, but you're absorbing it anyway, because when systems protect themselves, they externalize cost. And the most efficient place to send that cost is downward, into time, stress, debt, uncertainty. If you're wondering why everything feels harder at once, this is why. The pressure isn't random, it's redistributed. Pay attention to that feeling. Don't scroll past it, don't normalize it. Staying with this matters, because understanding the pattern is the only leverage left to people outside the system. And what happens next doesn't just depend on policy, it depends on whether people notice the moment they're being trained to endure. We're not at the end yet. We're at the point where the consequences stop being abstract. What began as internal pressure doesn't stay contained. Systems like this export instability the way heat escapes a sealed room, through markets, through alliances, through miscalculation. Other countries notice the signals before citizens do. They watch posture replace policy. They watch unpredictability masquerade as strength, coordination phrase. Trust becomes conditional. Defensive moves multiply, quietly, at first, not because war is inevitable, because uncertainty is contagious. When the rules of engagement become unclear, everyone plans for the worst version. Exercises replace diplomacy. Redundancies replace reliance. This is how local strain becomes global risk without a single declaration. No announcement, no clear turning point, just a growing sense that guarantees no longer guarantee anything. And once that perception sets in, it doesn't matter what anyone intends. Systems react to incentives, not assurances. Right now, the incentive is preparation, for volatility, for surprise, which means the margin for error is shrinking everywhere at once. What happens next isn't about ideology, it's about trajectory, and trajectories don't need permission to continue. From here, the system has three possible paths, not outcomes, directions. The first is adjustment. Pressure is acknowledged. Friction is restored. Institutions reassert limits slowly, imperfectly, but deliberately. This path is quiet. It requires time, credibility, and restraint, the hardest resources to recover once spent. The second is erosion. Nothing breaks all at once. Standards thin, exceptions multiply. Each step defensible, each retreat rationalized. Life continues, just heavier, more brittle, more conditional than before. Most systems choose this path by default, not because it's best, because it avoids immediate confrontation. The third path is rupture, a moment where accumulated stress exceeds the system's ability to redirect it. An external shock, a misread signal, a move that can't be walked back. Rupture doesn't announce itself as failure. It arrives as necessity, as inevitability. Right now, we are not locked into any one path. But the window to choose is narrowing. And the danger isn't that something happens suddenly. It's that nothing intervenes before momentum decides for us. If you were waiting for reassurance, this isn't it. Systems don't correct themselves because people feel alarmed. They correct when incentives change or when failure forces the change. Right now, the signal being sent is tolerance. Tolerance for drift, for opacity, for pressure being rerouted instead of resolved. Nothing in this story ends cleanly. There is no reset button hiding off screen, only a series of choices most people will never be told they're making. What matters now isn't outrage. Outrage burns out. What matters is attention, sustained, uncomfortable, unblinking, because the most dangerous phase of systemic failure isn't collapse, it's normalization. If this felt unsettling, it should. That feeling is information. Stay with it. Follow what happens next. Not just here, everywhere power stops explaining itself. The next chapter of this story won't arrive as news. It will arrive as conditions, and by the time it's obvious, the cost of not noticing will already be paid. Don't stop watching.